Hey, just wanted to do a quick video on the dual disc setup on my 1976 CB550 K. Did a lot of digging online and couldn't really find much, or at least a YouTube video on how to do a dual disc setup on a CB550 in particular. But I did enough digging. I found some websites that had some detailed instructions, but I just wanted to put out a quick video on how I did it. There's a couple ways you can do it, but just wanted to go into the easiest way for me. So the first thing I had to do was add a second disc to my wheel. And the main issue with that is the speedometer drive plate gets in the way from mounting your second disc. So I'm going to show you guys how I modified my drive plate. You don't have to buy anything special. You can do it with a file, but an angle grinder helps a lot. And then as well as needing to modify that, you also need 6 longer bolts to be able to fit both discs and have the nuts go down enough to securely fasten it. These are M8 by 1.25 by 110 millimeters. So they're 10 millimeters longer to align with the thicker disc. So if you look here, this is my modified center disc. You can tell it looks a lot like the stock. Well, that's because it is. So here is a stock one, and you can see it has the raised shoulder that sits around the hub. And all you have to do is you have to cut this part off. So you cut the raised part off and you make it a flat plate. From there you can go 2 different ways. So what I did was I actually drilled into my hub and I drilled holes into the plate and tapped it and ran some M4 screws in there, and that's what secures it onto the wheel so like it spins the hub. Another way you can do it is you can make this plate and then you can grind some little tabs and bend those little tabs down, and they sit on those 2 outside grooves on the hub. This is the way I went. I thought it was a little cleaner. It's easy to pull the plate on and off, and I know those 2 bolts will hold it securely in place. So the next thing I did was make sure I had all the right parts. So I already had extra calipers, so these have been repainted and rebuilt with both have new caliper seals and pistons in them. You're going to need a second set of mounting hardware for everything, so an extra M8 and then these M6 bolts, as well as extra here and an extra drive arm. I'll show you more detailed photos. And then, like I mentioned before, the 6 110 millimeter brake disc bolts. Up top, I went with just a reproduction master cylinder. This is for a dual disc setup, or like a gold wing. All this is just a 5/8 inch bore. So just a little more juice for the second caliper. And then my stock brake lines were pretty worn, so I upgraded to steel brake lines. I'd highly recommend you do this. This top brake line was $7 on Amazon. And then my bottom 2 brake lines were $10 each. So pretty good upgrade, especially running dual discs, just so your lines aren't expanding on those old rubber cracked ones. First thing I'm going to do is actually mount my wheel so my bike can get up on the wheel. And I'm just going to get it loosely mounted. And I need to make sure that both of my fork brackets, or disc brackets, are in parallel with the discs, because the right side disc, when you mount it, it doesn't quite sit as far out. So you can see on this right hand side, we're running just about flat to the bar. And the same thing on this side, it's pretty parallel. All right, we're gonna get our calipers mounted and see how well they fit. The last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna put the side-to-side adjusting screws in. The only thing you need to know is the screw on the right side, the locking nut has to go on the inside as the screw is just not long enough. Last thing I want to show you guys is I'm running the stock block with the stock brake switch activator, but I'm running a double banjo bolt. Yep. So you can run 2 brake lines in there out of one, and it will actually split it for you. So that double banjo bolt, you can see it going into 2 different brake lines. Again, these are just some more steel braided brake lines that I got off Amazon. So that one comes around. I ran it through the speedometer cable, and I ended up zip tying it to the bracket itself so it doesn't rub the wheel ever. So coming on this side, I have it running right over the bracket, and then this line happens to have this little steel tube, just kind of like the stock ones, going into my brake caliper here. Other than that, I didn't use up any spacers for the caliper mount. What I did was I actually just used the fender itself, and that acted as a spacer for the top. And then the bottom, I found that you really shouldn't use any spacers, otherwise it rotates the angle too much this way. And then you can see on the left side that same brake line. So that's how I ended up running my dual disc setup on my 1976 CB550 K2. I put about 100 miles on it with the dual disc setup, and I can say it has some improved braking. However, I can't say that it's crazy significant. I think if I got my rotors drilled and got some of that unsprung weight out of there, it would help some. However, I definitely noticed it a little bit, and for how cheap it was, you can't beat the look of having a dual disc setup. I think it just kind of adds a little bit of that symmetry to the bike, and just kind of makes it just that much better and just a little more custom. So I'll post all the parts that I use for this, and I'll put some Amazon links in there. Just for those of you that are kind of curious on how I set up my dual disc. So just to kind of go from the top again, 5/8 master cylinder into a steel braided brake line, into the stock brake line junction here, and then out the bottom of the brake line junction I have that double banjo bolt running to 2 more steel braided brake lines, each one running to their respective caliper. And then for that right side caliper, no spacers, all I used was the front fender as a spacer. So that's all I have on this. If you have any questions, just leave a message. And if you guys have any other things you want to see done, or things explained on my bike, or how to do things in the future, just let me know, and I can put out some short vids.